Have you ever crossed paths with someone and felt something unexplainable? Not just chemistry, not just timing, but a deeper sense that the universe itself orchestrated your meeting. Like some invisible thread tugged you into the same moment, the same space, the same heart. That's not just coincidence. That's alignment. And when the universe wants you to be with someone, it doesn't whisper. It shows you, clearly, in ways that go far beyond chance. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's written in synchronicities, timing, energy shifts, and subtle emotional awakenings. Many people look for love in logic, in dating apps, in lists, in strategies. And while those tools have their place, they often miss the signs that are less obvious but far more powerful. The truth is, the universe doesn't just send people into our lives, it nudges us toward the ones who are aligned with our soul's timing, growth, and healing. But how do you know when it's one of those people? How do you recognize when the universe is speaking to you? Not in words, but in events, emotions, and intuition. That's what we're going to explore. These 10 signs aren't just clues, they're confirmations. They're the universe's way of saying, this person matters, pay attention. You know, sometimes the universe doesn't whisper, it practically shouts, and one of the loudest ways it communicates is through repetition, through patterns, through this strange, inexplicable force that keeps pulling you towards someone over and over again. You keep bumping into them, whether physically, online, or through random mentions from mutual friends. Maybe it's that same name popping up on your phone unexpectedly, or you run into them on a street you've never walked down before. You think, what are the odds? But deep down, a part of you knows, this isn't chance. These kinds of encounters feel different. They're not forced, they're not orchestrated by you. In fact, they often happen when you're trying to move on, focus on your own path, or when you've let go of attachment to the outcome. And yet, there they are again, in your orbit. It's like the universe is nudging you, gently but persistently saying, pay attention. You might try to rationalize it at first. Maybe it's coincidence. Maybe your town is just small. Maybe your social circles are overlapping. But after a while, it stops feeling like randomness and starts feeling like guidance. Because energy follows intention. And sometimes that intention isn't even conscious. Sometimes it's soul deep. And the universe, being what it is, listens to that energy more than it listens to logic. I remember speaking to someone once who said they met their partner 3 different times in 3 different cities before they ever exchanged more than a few words. First, at a bookstore in one city, then, a few months later, at a cafe across the country, and the third time, at a retreat in a completely different place, seated right next to each other by chance. At that point, they both just laughed. Because what else can you do when the universe makes its presence so clear? These moments are laced with a strange kind of electricity, a sense of wonder. You feel it not just in your mind but in your body, in your chest, your gut, your skin. It's as if something beyond logic is trying to tell you, look again, don't dismiss this. And often, it's not just about the person themselves. It's about the version of you that emerges around them, the way your spirit lights up, the ease with which your soul recognizes theirs, even when your mind hasn't caught up yet. There's a certain kind of magic in the repetition. When someone keeps showing up in your life, especially when you're not trying to make it happen, it's worth exploring, not necessarily rushing into anything, but simply getting curious. What is it about this connection that refuses to fade? Why is this energy circling back again and again? You see, the universe doesn't waste energy. It doesn't waste time. When it continues placing someone in your path, it's often because there's something there for you, a lesson, a mirror, a partner, a catalyst. Maybe all of those. It might be a call to heal or a sign that you're finally ready to open your heart in a way you weren't before. The timing of these encounters can be just as meaningful as the encounters themselves. That moment when you're ready to grow, to love more fully, or to step into alignment with your truth, that's often when someone appears who matches that frequency. And let me be clear, just because someone keeps showing up doesn't mean it will always be easy. Sometimes it's about breaking through the resistance, the fears, the old stories we carry. Sometimes it's about recognizing that love isn't always lightning bolts and fireworks. Sometimes it's gentle persistence, quiet alignment, a door that keeps opening until you finally walk through it. The beauty of this kind of universal guidance is that it doesn't demand, it invites. It doesn't push you towards someone, it keeps placing them gently within reach, asking only that you be aware, that you stay open, that you trust the rhythm of your own journey. You don't have to chase it, you just have to stop running from it. So when someone keeps crossing your path, not once, not twice, but repeatedly, maybe it's not just coincidence. Maybe it's the universe reminding you that some connections are written in a deeper language, one your soul already understands. And when your soul understands something before your mind does, it's best to listen, not because you're desperate to be with someone, but because you recognize a pattern that isn't random. And in that recognition, there's power, there's peace, there's clarity. There are certain moments in life that bypass logic entirely. You meet someone, and without a word being exchanged, something deep within you stirs. It's not about how they look or even what they say. It's the energy, it's the frequency. It's as if your soul suddenly remembers something your mind hasn't yet processed. You feel drawn to them, not in the usual romantic way, but in a way that feels timeless. There's a knowing, quiet, undeniable, and complete. That's what it feels like when the universe wants you to notice someone. This kind of connection doesn't come with noise. It isn't chaotic, and it doesn't shout. It feels like silence you've been missing your whole life. When you look at them, there's a sense of recognition, like you've met before, even if you haven't. It's not déjà vu exactly, it's deeper. It's an echo from something beyond memory, beyond experience. You might try to explain it to someone else, but words never quite capture it. That's because it's not a thought, it's a feeling. And feelings, especially ones rooted in the soul, speak in a different language. We often talk about chemistry like it sparks and adrenaline, but real connection, the kind the universe orchestrates, feels different. It's not just physical, it's not just intellectual. It's something more whole, more complete. When you meet someone and immediately feel safe, seen, or completely yourself, pay attention. That's not common. That's not ordinary. That's not something we create through effort. It's something that simply is. In those first few moments, you might feel your heart relax or your mind quiet. You might find yourself speaking more freely than usual or laughing in a way that feels easy and unfiltered. That's because your soul is responding to a familiar vibration, one it trusts. And that trust is older than your current self. It's the kind of trust that can't be built. It's remembered. This connection isn't always romantic, not at first. In fact, sometimes it begins in the most subtle ways. You feel inspired by them, or calm around them, or you just feel more like yourself when you're near them. You don't feel the need to impress or pretend or shrink. That's because real alignment doesn't require performance. It simply allows presence. And presence is where all the magic begins. Sometimes that deep connection feels so sudden that it's almost unsettling. You ask yourself, how can I feel this close to someone I barely know? But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the better question is, why do I feel like I already know them? Because maybe, in some way, you do. Maybe the universe doesn't introduce strangers. Maybe it just reunites what was never truly separate. People often look for signs that they've found the one, but the signs aren't always dramatic. They're subtle. The ease of your conversations, the silence that doesn't feel heavy, the way you understand each other without needing to explain. the way time bends when you're together, either stretching endlessly or disappearing entirely. These are the fingerprints of something deeper. These are the quiet confirmations that the universe is in the room with you. There's also an energetic symmetry that shows up when it's real, not a perfect match, but a perfect mirror. You see aspects of yourself in them, not in a way that creates comfort, but in a way that calls you forward. They reflect your light and sometimes your shadow, but they do it with such clarity that you can't help but grow. And growth, real soul-aligned growth, is one of the strongest signs that a connection is meant. We spend so much of our lives chasing compatibility, trying to find someone who checks all the boxes. But universal alignment doesn't arrive as a checklist. It arrives as a feeling, a moment, a truth that doesn't need validation. You just know. And that knowing is rare and sacred and entirely outside the rules we've been taught to follow. You'll know it by the way you breathe differently around them, by the way your heart stops fighting the moment, by the way you stop asking, "Is this right?" and instead begin feeling, "This is real." And when that kind of connection enters your life, the universe doesn't want you to ignore it. It wants you to honor it, not by rushing or attaching or controlling, but by being present, fully, openly, courageously. Because when something feels that real, that effortless, that deep, it usually is. There's something remarkable about timing, not just in the way events unfold, but in how people appear, almost as if summoned by your inner world. You may not realize it at first, but when you look back, it becomes obvious. The moment you started healing, evolving, or becoming more honest with yourself, someone entered your life who met you at that exact frequency, not above you, not below you, right beside you. That's no accident. That's the universe responding to your inner shift, placing someone on your path who mirrors where you're headed, not where you've been. When we go through personal growth, real growth, it's rarely clean or easy. There's grief, release, discomfort. You shed old identities, dismantle long-held beliefs, and often walk alone for a while. But that's the thing about growth. It creates space. And in that space, the universe begins to move. It listens to the version of you that's emerging, not the one you're leaving behind. And so, when someone shows up during that transformation, they're often arriving not because you need them, but because you're finally ready. Readiness is quiet. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it simply opens. And in that opening, you become a magnet, not to just anyone, but to someone who aligns with the new energy you're carrying. Someone who feels like clarity, not confusion. Someone who sees you not just for who you are, but for who you're becoming. It's uncanny how often this happens. Just as you begin to release toxic patterns or stop seeking validation or return to the truth of your own worth, a connection appears that reflects that work back to you. That's the universe saying, now. You're ready now. And it's important to say this. The person who shows up during this time isn't always easy. They might challenge you. They might hold up a mirror you weren't expecting. But that's because the universe isn't trying to give you comfort. It's trying to give you expansion. It's offering someone who doesn't distract you from your growth, but deepens it. Who walks beside you not to fix you, but to witness your unfolding. There's a reason why certain people don't come into your life when you're still hiding parts of yourself. The universe waits. It waits for alignment. It waits for truth. Because a connection rooted in illusion can't last. But one that's born in clarity, in authenticity, becomes a sacred meeting point. A shared space where two souls can walk each other home, not out of dependence, but out of recognition. And you'll know this kind of connection by how it feels. It won't feel like rescue. It won't feel like drama. It will feel like something deep within you exhaling for the first time. You'll notice that you're not shrinking anymore, that you're not performing, that you're not editing yourself to be loved. Because now, you're being seen in your wholeness, and someone is choosing you there. That's not just timing, that's divine timing. Often, we romanticize struggle in relationships. We think love must be hard to be real. But when someone enters your life during your healing, it doesn't feel like struggle. It feels like alignment, like resonance, like the universe is placing a hand gently on your back and saying, yes, this way. You don't question it because it doesn't create confusion, it creates coherence. Everything starts to make more sense, not just about them, but about you. You begin to understand that maybe all the pain, the waiting, the wandering was leading to this intersection. That maybe the healing wasn't just for you, but to make room for a connection that could actually hold your truth. And when you meet someone who was never meant to save you, but to meet you, that's the work of the universe at its finest. Some people come into your life to help you remember who you are, but the ones who arrive during your evolution, they're there to walk with you into who you're becoming, not because they complete you, but because they see the completeness you've worked so hard to claim. That's not coincidence. That's alignment. That's timing wrapped in grace. And when someone appears during your growth, not as a distraction, but as a companion on the path, that's the universe reminding you that love is not found in the avoidance of pain, but in the presence of truth. There is a kind of beauty in the way life flows when it's in harmony. You don't have to force it, chase it, or manipulate it into shape. It just moves, quietly and confidently. And when you meet someone whose life seems to flow effortlessly alongside yours, that's something to notice. It's not about perfection or drama, it's about alignment. Your paths, your rhythms, your timing, they start to echo each other in ways that feel strangely natural, like two rivers meeting at just the right bend. You might not even realize it at first. It could start with a shared goal, a similar vision, or simply the feeling that you're walking in the same direction, even if you took very different roads to get there. The conversations are unforced. The plans come together without struggle. The pace feels just right, not too fast to overwhelm you, not too slow to lose momentum. There's no pressure to perform, no urgency to define everything all at once. Instead, there's a calm recognition. This fits. This makes sense. That kind of synchronicity doesn't come from chemistry alone. It comes from something deeper, a kind of unspoken agreement between your souls that says, we're ready now. It's a meeting that occurs not just between people, but between their intentions. Both of you may have done your own inner work, healed wounds, faced truths, and outgrown patterns that once kept you from being able to receive this kind of connection. And now that you're no longer tangled in resistance, you're able to move side by side without friction. You start to notice little things. They understand your silences without needing to fill them. They don't try to fix you when you're struggling, but they don't disappear either. There's a rhythm to how they show up. Steady, respectful, intentional. They don't pull you off your path. If anything, they keep you grounded in it. You still have your own life, your own growth, your own journey, but somehow, walking next to them makes your steps feel more certain. This isn't about compatibility in the surface-level sense. It's not about whether you both like the same music or order the same coffee. It's about whether your lives breathe in harmony, whether your values are speaking the same language, whether the way you handle conflict, connection, time, and truth creates more peace than confusion. When the universe wants you to be with someone, things don't feel like a constant uphill battle. They feel like alignment. That doesn't mean there won't be challenges. But challenges are very different from chaos. Real alignment doesn't mean an absence of difficulty. It means a shared willingness to face difficulty together. It's when two people are willing to communicate, to grow, to be accountable. It's when problems don't become a battleground, but a shared space for understanding. And that kind of connection doesn't need to be forced into place. It evolves naturally, like breathing, like seasons changing, like a river finding its course. There is something incredibly powerful about the absence of resistance. When you're no longer trying to convince someone to stay, when you're not constantly explaining yourself or negotiating your worth, when you're not rearranging your dreams to fit inside someone else's fears. Instead, you're simply walking, and they're walking too, and somewhere along the way your steps begin to match. That's alignment, and the universe doesn't just approve of that, it orchestrates it. You'll notice it in the way you both prioritize things that matter. Maybe it's honesty, maybe it's freedom, maybe it's building something meaningful. But there's a sense that your values don't clash, they combine. There's room for both of you to be fully yourselves and still move together in a shared direction. You don't feel like you're compromising the truth of who you are. You feel like you're becoming more of who you are because someone is walking with you who honors that truth. And perhaps the most telling part of it all is how peaceful it feels. Not boring, not stagnant, just peaceful. As if, for the first time, you don't have to prove anything. You can just be. You're not stuck in the highs and lows of emotional volatility. You're grounded, rooted, present. And when love shows up in that form, quiet, steady, and aligned, that's when you know the universe has been doing its part behind the scenes all along. Because when your path and someone else's begin to move in the same direction without force, without fear, and without you having to abandon yourself to make it happen, that's the kind of connection the universe doesn't just allow, but supports fully. Sometimes the most profound signals from the universe don't come through external signs or repeating numbers or even the arrival of a person. They come from within you. They come from a shift in your inner world, a quiet realization that you're no longer looking for someone to complete you, fix you, or rescue you. Instead, you feel full, steady, rooted in yourself. And it's from that fullness, not from longing or loneliness, that you begin to sense, I'm ready now. That readiness is subtle, it's not loud or dramatic. It doesn't come with declarations or urgency. It shows up as peace. You're not chasing, you're not proving, you're not trying to fit into someone else's idea of love. You've stopped editing yourself. You've stopped abandoning your own needs to earn closeness. You're simply standing in the truth of who you are, and from that place something in your heart opens. Gently, willingly, without fear. That is not just self-growth, that is the signal. And in that moment, without even realizing it, your energy changes. You're no longer vibrating from a place of lack. You're no longer sending out the signal of, I need someone. Instead, you're radiating, I am whole. And that frequency, that inner shift, draws in something entirely different. It's no longer about filling a gap. It's about reflecting the wholeness in another person. And that, right there, is how the universe responds. This is the beautiful paradox. The moment you stop needing someone is often the moment someone aligned enters. Not because you've given up, but because you've let go of the desperation. You're not trying to control the outcome anymore. You're not trying to force a timeline. You're simply allowing. And in that allowing, you make space. You make space for what's real to find you. Reconnecting isn't about perfection. It's not about having healed every wound or figured everything out. It's about being aware of your patterns, being honest about your needs, being responsible for your own happiness. It's about no longer expecting someone else to do the work you now know is yours. And when you're in that space, not bitter, not guarded, just open and clear, the universe listens. It listens, and it responds with synchronicity. You begin to notice that you're more discerning but less defensive. You have stronger boundaries but a softer heart. You don't cling to possibilities, but you also don't shut them out. You meet people with presence, not with fear, not with fantasy. And when someone shows up who mirrors that same energy, there's a quiet recognition. We've both done the work. We're both ready for something real. And still, even then, you're not trying to make it happen. You're not overanalyzing. You're just noticing, trusting, letting it unfold without gripping too tightly. That is such a powerful place to be. When you know what you want, but you're no longer afraid of not getting it, when your worth is not tied to someone else's attention, when your peace doesn't depend on external reassurance, that is when you're ready, not just for love, but for aligned love. There's a very different energy that flows when two people meet from a place of wholeness. There's no chasing, no running, no emotional tug-of-war. There's clarity, mutual respect, a natural unfolding. You're able to hold space for their humanity, their flaws, their fears, because you're holding space for your own. And suddenly, the connection isn't built on fantasy or projection. It's built on truth. That kind of connection can last. That kind of connection can grow. And it all starts with that shift inside, that sense of inner balance that says, I'm not waiting anymore. I'm living. And because you're no longer waiting for love to arrive before you become who you're meant to be, love arrives as a reflection, not a reward. That's the difference. That's the moment the universe chooses to step in. Because when you've reached a place where love is no longer a lifeline but a choice, when your heart is open not out of need but out of strength, when you're not looking to be rescued but to meet someone equally alive, equally present, the universe knows. And when it knows, it aligns the pieces in ways that no amount of strategy or effort ever could. There are moments in life when the presence of someone becomes a kind of quiet revolution. Not because they overwhelm you with attention or fill your world with noise, but because something about their presence changes the way you relate to yourself. They arrive and somehow, without trying, they make you want to be better. Not for them, not to earn love, but because they reflect back a version of you that you've always sensed was possible. It's subtle, but unmistakable. A shift in how you carry yourself, a softening, a strengthening, a willingness to step more fully into who you are. When the universe places someone in your life who inspires growth without pressure, pay attention. That's not ordinary. That's not casual. That's a soul-level nudge. A cosmic invitation to expand. You find yourself listening more closely to your own needs. You speak more honestly. You start taking responsibility for your emotions in a way that feels mature, not heavy. It's as though being around them activates something dormant in you. A deeper integrity, a deeper desire to show up with truth. It's not that they complete you. It's that they remind you that you are whole. And through their example, their presence, or simply the way they see you, you begin to shed the parts of yourself that were built out of survival. The masks, the defense mechanisms, the outdated stories you've been telling yourself for years. You begin to trust that being seen isn't dangerous anymore, that intimacy doesn't require abandonment of self, that love, real love, is not earned by shrinking or striving, but by being exactly who you are, in process, in progress, in truth. That kind of connection doesn't demand perfection. It doesn't punish your flaws. If anything, it encourages you to look at those places you've hidden, not with shame, but with curiosity. And that's how growth happens. Not from judgment, but from being met with compassion. When someone stands beside you and doesn't flinch when you reveal the harder parts, something inside you begins to heal. Not because they fixed it, but because they held space for it. And you, in turn, do the same. You become more patient, more present, more willing to hold space for someone else's humanity, because now you know that love doesn't mean idealizing someone. It means seeing them fully and still choosing to stay open, still choosing to grow beside them, still choosing to rise into who you both are capable of becoming. Growth in this kind of connection isn't always loud. It's often quiet. It shows up in the small moments, the way you respond instead of react, the way you apologize more sincerely, the way you forgive more easily, not because you're being passive, but because you understand now that holding on hurts more than letting go. You start to move through life with a little more grace, a little more intention, because love is no longer a battlefield. It's a mirror, and that mirror is asking you, gently, to look at yourself with new eyes. Sometimes this growth looks like boundaries. Sometimes it looks like softness. Sometimes it's in the courage to speak a truth you used to silence. Sometimes it's in the quiet strength of being vulnerable again after being hurt. And sometimes it's in the simple, revolutionary act of letting someone love you without questioning if you deserve it. That kind of growth, the kind that shifts your entire relationship to love itself, doesn't come from just anyone. It comes from someone the universe placed in your life with purpose. And you'll feel it. You'll feel the way you expand around them, not because they are asking you to change, but because you want to. Because love, when aligned, isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more you, more grounded, more awake, more capable of choosing love that doesn't distort your truth, but deepens it. That's how you know the universe is guiding you. When love becomes a catalyst for clarity. When someone's presence reminds you, not of who you were, but of who you're capable of being. When being with them doesn't distract you from yourself, but brings you back to yourself. More fully, more gently, more powerfully than ever before. Have you ever met someone and felt like the universe was trying to tell you something? Like, no matter how hard you try to explain it, there's just this unshakable knowing that this person is meant to be in your life? That it's not just chemistry, it's timing, alignment, and something bigger working behind the scenes? If you felt that, or you're wondering if the connection you're in right now is meant for you, if you felt that, or you're wondering if the connection you're in right now is meant for you. Because in this message, I'm going to walk you through 10 powerful, clear signs the universe sends when it wants you to be with someone, not based on fantasy, but on energy, timing, and deep soul alignment. So stay with me, because one of these signs might explain exactly what your heart's been feeling and what your soul already knows. Thank you.